Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. I am one of your lovely hosts, Mike Cash. You can find me on Twitter at FFMikeCash with a K. You can also find me on Blue Sky with the little butterfly stuff going on. Evan, do you have a Blue Sky yet?
I don't even know if you're speaking English right now, Mike. So
weird. But we are here to bring you the 2025 top tight end prospects. Whether for Dynasty or your actual like NFL draft stuff, we have takes on a couple of them. We're going to go through our top 6. We're probably going to end up accidentally talking about a couple of other guys just because we like tight ends and what they bring. Before we get into our rankings, you want to talk a little bit about how you go about evaluating these guys? Do you care if they're a move versus an inline tight end? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking for athleticism first. I'm looking to see what they can do, what kind of twitch they have, what kind of moving ability they have, what kind of cutting ability they have. Then I'm looking for fluidity in hands, how they're doing, being able to be sticky with their hands, attack the football, how they're doing running actual routes, because that's what scores us fantasy points. All right. Sure. Blocking is great for your NFL team, but unfortunately for fantasy football, I don't think there's many blocking point leagues out there, Mike.
We should make one.
We probably should. That'd be kind of fun, kind of interesting to see how that goes. Gabe Davis would be an absolute stud at wide receiver in that league.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that's the first thing. Then I'm looking for any kind of production metrics. So I'm going through all of that. I'm looking for how they were utilized in their offense. Scheme versatility has been huge with the NFL these days. So that's definitely something that I want to see, but I also don't want them just to be, big slots, basically. Yep. I want them to have played a little bit in line. Yeah. Let's just throw out Rondé Gradson as one of them.
The wide receiver.
That's not a tight end. So.
No. Yeah. I started watching him for tight end things because I was like, oh, man, he's out there setting records, doing great things. My guy's a wide receiver. They changed his name in ESPN so that he could get all of the records. I'm very similar with you. I look at fluidity of hips, fluidity of movement skills, and then how they are actually running their routes. Do they show that burst, that athleticism that you want to see? Do they have sticky enough hands? Do they use their wide wingspan? Do they have a wide wingspan? Which we might talk about some guys with that. And then in the run game, I need to see enough out of them that an NFL offense won't take them off the field. I don't like Isaiah Likely was super fun for a couple of games in 2024, but that's not the archetype that's going to succeed at the NFL year in and year out. So you want to see guys that own the tight end one role on their team and then are able to translate that into fantasy points, snaps all the times, and targets at the goal line. So with that, let's go through 6 and 5. I have number 6, Mason Taylor out of LSU. I thought the movement skills were all right. I wasn't super blown away. He seems like he could be an effective tight end too, kind of like in that Grant Calcaterra role for the Eagles. And I think that's about it. And then at 5, I have Maliki Mataveo out of UCLA. Listen, if you didn't watch UCLA football, I don't blame you. But he has the movement skills. He has the size. Jim Nagy won't stop talking about how good he is, but that's because he's at the Senior Bowl, and Jim Nagy loves his Senior Bowl guys. I think that he is somebody that will rise up draft boards as we move towards draft day. Maybe he's never going to be a superstar for your fantasy team, but he could be a best ball dart if he winds up in the right situation. Evan, who do you have at 6 and 5? And do you have any qualms?
No, Mike, honestly, 6 is one of those players that, man, there are so many names that somebody could rank here at 6. Some people are saying Ferguson. Some people are standing for Brennan Stool. Some people are standing for Eurosic. There's a lot of guys here. Some people still believe in Luke Lachey. Some people believe in Mitchell Evans and that Notre Dame pedigree at tight end. So we just listed off a bunch of names. Absolute sleeper dart. It was so much fun to watch at Pitt. Gavin Bartholomew, another name right there. But My number 6 is going to be Gunnar Helm. Look,
Okay.
you might feel a little disgusting being a Texas fan here, but he played a lot of inline tight end, which seems to translate relatively well. But at the same time, he had over 50% of his snaps being blocking snaps, but he's not that good of a blocker, which is definitely interesting to see how Sark decided to use him that way. So I was pretty intrigued. Played some special teams, which I really appreciate. Special teams is what makes these players that are going to be third, fourth, fifth, sixth round picks, makes those guys really pop and stay on a roster and be able to give them a chance to develop in an NFL system, be able to find out how they're best used. He can find holes in the zone. I appreciate that out of a tight end, especially one that's an inline tight end. Pretty soft hands from what I saw. Rarely asked to run deep, though. I don't know if that was just Sark's play design here or there's other receivers that did that for the offense. So
it was definitely play design because Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden are two very good deep threats. You don't want your big white tight end running that. But I did see a couple of seam routes, which I really liked. I have Gunnar Helm rated higher than this. But I don't like, I'm going to say something bad and people are going to be mad about it. I think 3 is closer to 6 than 3 is to 2. If that makes sense.
100%. I am right there with you, Mike. It is 1 and 2. And honestly, some people may say it's kind of crazy, but 1 and 2 are pretty dang close for me when I go through my ranks. And then there is a giant gap between 2 and 3. So,
yep. I like the Gunnar Helm call out. Who did you have at 6?
So Gunnar Helm is 6.
Who you have at 5?
5 is Mason Taylor.
Okay. So we're pretty
we
lockstep there.
We have family pedigree at this point that's going to help him to be able to stick around the NFL. Look, whether we like it or not, nepotism and family traits do mean a lot at the NFL level. If I was doing my math correct, 54%, give or take, 0 to 9 yards on his receptions. So that's a lot.
Give me 1 sec, but that sounds right.
That's a lot, and that's pretty much how he was used in this offense, which fits his skill style perfectly. He is that check down Charlie. Like I literally wrote down check down Charlie, safety valve for his quarterback with sticky hands and doesn't drop the football when it's in his wingspan.
His average depth of target was 8 yards.
There we go.
Yards after catch per reception was tied for 129th in the class for PFF. If you like the Tyler Lockett of tight ends, you're going to love Mason Taylor.
So he is, what do we want to go with? Ooh, okay. We're going to go with Jason Witten at the last 2 years of his career.
I think that's giving him too much credit, finding the spots in the zone.
Okay, all right.
He, from what I saw, was fine running in a straight line, but he would just keep running in the straight line until, he would run off the field. He was just like, all right, I'm going. So, they're fine. Let's talk about some guys. Let's fly through 4 and 3 because we really want to talk about 1 and 2. Those are the players that are exciting. 4 for me, I have Harold Fannin Jr. Small, weighted at the Senior Bowl at 6'3", 240, if I remember right, 230.
I think it's 238.
I'll look it up, but look, I saw all the hype around him. I was really excited to go in and, watch this player after all the hype. Like, should have won the Mackey Award because he was the best tight end in college football. And I think that's how he'll go down. He was a really, really fun college tight end. Yeah, he was 6'3" and 1/8, 238 pounds, smallish hands. Do you know Jake Brandstuhl only has 8 and 7/8 inch hands?
Little baby hands.
Dude, he makes Kenny Pickett look huge. But
do you think that Fannin played at 238 all season? Because
absolutely not.
I do not think that there's a chance that he played at 238. It was 230 maybe.
He put on 10 to 15 pounds for this weigh-in. And I think it's hurting him because
he looks slow.
What he needed to do was be an elite movement guy.
Yep.
And my comp for him is Isaiah Likely. I think that is how he would be best employed, but he doesn't have the same movement skills as Likely. He doesn't have the same body control as Likely. He does have some great body control. Like he is able to like bring the ball down when it's outside of his wingspan. He's able to extend for the ball, but he's doing that with a small frame that he doesn't move very well. Like I put this out on Twitter. I think he's just a fake wide receiver with a nasty stiff arm highlight reel. Like,
yeah, he can contort his body.
Yeah.
Like a wide receiver, but he plays tight end.
Yeah. And if a team drafts him with a clear plan, like we're going to employ him in this way, okay, I'm interested. If he goes to, let's say, the Jets, let's say he goes to the Giants, let's say he goes to another team where they just don't know how to use their offensive skill players, he's going to be dead. And that's like, you can't draft Harold Fannin Jr. and say, I have my number 3, my number 4, like I have a top 5 tight end. You draft Harold Fannin Jr. and say, I have this chess piece and I plan on employing him in this way. And I just don't have enough faith in NFL GMs to do that with a guy like him. So a little lower on him. How likely do you think it is that Fannin flames out of the league or is like completely on dynasty waivers compared to some of the other names around him? I think the bust factor is higher.
No, 100%. I mean, people are going to continue to knock the fact that he played G5 schools, continue to knock the fact that his playing weight, there's no way his playing weight was 238. You put all of that together with the other potential that's around him and hey, maybe they're going to be a tight end too on their actual football team, yep. But they could be getting some run. There's plenty of guys like that in this draft. So yeah, 100%. I think he has a much higher bust factor than most people are giving him credit for. And if you're telling me that where he was going pre all of the Senior Bowl stuff that's going on with him pre the end of the season, yeah, I'm not going to have a lot of Fannin Jr. at that point because I'm not spending a top half of the second round pick on him.
He looks like he's trying to turn with concrete shoes, which isn't great for a small guy that needs to be an elite mover. So number 3, I have Gunnar Helm. I think that he moves appropriately for his size, but this is to say, I think 3 through 7, I have Elijah Arroyo at 7, which like, I think all of those guys have the ability to fit into a team and maybe have a role for fantasy football. My concern with Fannin Jr. is that he's not useful as a real tight end and he's not fast enough to be useful as a real wide receiver. The more that I talk about this, the more I think I might move Fannin Jr. down. So I understand the concerns with Gunnar, but I think he's still young. He's still doing a good job. The Texas offense wasn't what it was supposed to be this year, and he was having to deal with however you feel about Isaiah Bond, however you feel about Matthew Golden, 2 NFL prospects stealing targets from him, not even mentioning Jaden Blue out of the backfield. But there were other receiving options on this offense, and he just didn't get a chance to shine.
And the previous production, let's remember that they still had JT Sanders,
Yes.
That is a large reason why he wasn't getting the early production in his career.
Yeah, how are you going to get a good breakout? We'll talk about this with Tyler Warren. Like, how are you going to get a breakout age when you're playing behind NFL prospects? So I have Fannin and Gunnar at 4 and 3. Give us your 4 and 3.
Yeah, so my 4 is Elijah Arroyo. I absolutely just have him steaming up boards right now. I think people are going to be seeing him at the Senior Bowl here, seeing him in the pro day workouts. They're going to be seeing him throughout the combine process, and they're going to be falling more and more in love with his athleticism and the fact that he wore a Miami helmet. Look, say that we don't want a helmet scout as much as you want, but Miami's had some very productive tight ends at the NFL level. We're talking about a guy that is still a project tight end. Elijah Arroyo is the perfect player that if you can draft and leave on your taxi squad and just let him just kind of sit and then have the same thing basically happen from an NFL standpoint. Like, I would love for specified packages year one to be what they do for Elijah Arroyo, and just let him be able to marinate, let him be able to understand the game. We're talking about a guy that basically missed 2 seasons in college, but was playing as a freshman. Like, let's not take that lightly. He was getting significant snaps as a true freshman at Miami. So we're talking about a guy in his final season, 9.1 yards after the catch per reception.
So double.
Huge number. That's a huge number. Played as a freshman. Scheme versatility. So inline snaps, slot snaps, couple wide snaps, and then in the backfield as well. We're talking about somebody that, if they have a creative offense, if you're going to be using him in motion to be able to try and get defenses to give you some kind of tell, he's able to do that. He's able to work off of many different locations on the field. He's got plenty of room for technique improvements because he hasn't played that many games in, all ways of saying it. The injuries really derailed what could have been a special college career. I think he's going to run in the mid to high 4.5s.
I can see that.
You think that's too excited here, Mike?
I think it's a little too excited, but I'm excited to see what Prize Picks puts the line at.
Yep.
And I'm probably taking faster.
Okay. All right, cool. Pushes linebackers with his speed, bullies safeties with his size. I think he came in at the Senior Bowl 251, actually having that 250 size, which, call me an old timer, but 247, 245, like, if you're under that number as a tight end, I got many, many questions for how you're going to be able to hold up, how you're going to be utilized. 31% deep targets this season, over 20 plus yards on the target. Sure, give some of that to Cam Ward and how Cam used to scramble in the pocket, how he used to scramble out of the pocket, extending plays, and Arroyo just starts going downfield. But he's utilized deep. He's also utilized in the screen game, which is a lot of fun for a tight end that's going to be 250. Just being able to barrel downfield with watching tinier wide receivers blocking for them. I love it. Scheme versatility, all of that, huge things to be able to be a riser. But don't get out on Arroyo early. If you're drafting him, you're drafting him for that second season, that sophomore season bump. You're not drafting him for that first season bump. And then we already talked about Harold Fannin Jr. He's my number 3. Look, I just can't make a case myself for anybody to really define themselves. And you asked me to put these guys in a list. So Harold Fannin's the guy that most fantasy people know. They've heard the name plenty of times at this point, but we've already talked about this. There is a giant gap for me between 3 and 2.
I think ADP, it's clearly going to be Fannin, but I think for players that will be on my team more, it's going to be Arroyo, Gunnar Helm, Maliki Mataveo, like those kinds of guys. Because I'm not going to pay the prices that Fannin's going to cost. And look, there's not a great argument for how his skills are going to translate. Very fun college prospect. Was a blast to watch. It's just hard for me to see what role he's going to have at the next level. But
yeah, totally agree. Mike, you want to go with your 1 and 2 here?
Who do you have at 1?
It's Tyler Warren. The Penn State fan over here has Tyler Warren.
Okay. I also have Tyler Warren. Did a Tyler Warren film study. Go check that out after this video. But at the end of that, I said, I think Colston Loveland is going to be more useful for our dynasty teams because he's a better receiver. And I still think Loveland could turn into a better receiver. But I also think Tyler Warren could continue his trajectory that he's on right now. So I have Warren at 1, Loveland at 2. Loveland, like, the season was derailed because Michigan's quarterback game was just, I don't want to talk about that. Accounting for the team passing yards, we did this before the show. Loveland had 1/3 of the team's receiving yards. He is the only option in that offense, and nobody could stop him anyway. Look, He's great at football. He's good at finding the soft spot in the zone. He's good at accelerating all over the field. Like the way that he moves looks like a future dynasty stud. So I'll pay up for Colston Loveland, but I'll pay a little bit more for Tyler Warren. I think that he is a Great Dane growing into his paws. Like quarterback in high school, sat behind 3 different NFL prospects in that tight end room at Penn State. So yeah, I'm not going to knock the guy for having a year 5 breakout. This isn't the who did we hate last year? Xavier Legette. This isn't the just random, oh, he's 25 and he figured out how to play football. This is, he was simmering. He was taking his time. He truly broke out. And I think that continues to the next level. I have him as angry TJ Hawkinson. Yep. So we're in lockstep there. You want to talk anything more about Loveland or Warren?
Well, man, Loveland is a decent bit younger than Warren. If you consider that as a dynasty tiebreaker, I can understand why you want to go with Loveland over Warren. Mm-hmm. So for anybody listening out there that's absolutely standing for Loveland, sure, I get it. You know, there's plenty of age conversations that are going to be going on here. Yeah, it's hard for me to make a case against Warren. It's hard for me to make a case against Loveland. I mean, he missed time. The only case that I have that is somewhat concerning is, yeah, Loveland played 15 and 14 games in 2023 and 2022, but his snap count was much lower than you expect. And frankly, I didn't watch enough Michigan in 2022. Watched plenty of Michigan in 2023. But it is kind of surprising to see the snap count so low for a tight end that we're talking about. Could be one of those fringe first, second round tight ends in the actual NFL draft here. So absolutely love his age, love the weight that he's probably going to be able to show. Shouldn't come in below 240. Hopefully pushes that 245, which I think is where he's listed. Plenty fluid, in line and the slot, both big things that I'm looking for. Also, 51 snaps out wide of his snaps, 370-ish snaps from this past season. That's a pretty big amount, pretty big percentage. Decent enough blocker, I'll say. Over 50%
blocker.
Yes, sure. Well, we'll go with that, Mike. I like that. He's a willing blocker.
Yep.
And he was the first read in this offense, which is exactly what you want out of your tight ends. You want them to understand, oh, okay, defenses need to plan around this guy. And even when defenses tried to plan around this guy, sure, Michigan was a run-first team. They're going to run the ball twice to every one pass.
Yep.
All right, they're basically Iowa of old. So what can we say? But even with them knowing that Loveland is the first read, he was still able to beat the linebackers inside out. He was able to beat the corners with his size when they're dropping into coverage. He's able to beat the safeties with his size again, to be able to just out-muscle them. He's able to beat them up the seam, be able to split them. I really appreciate basically everything that Colston Loveland is going to be able to provide. Also, Michigan has had plenty of success. They know how to train offensive linemen, and there was a little bit of cross-training that supposedly had been going on with the tight ends, which allegedly, which is always a plus if that actually occurred.
Yep. Bottom line, pay up for Warren and Loveland, or wait for an Arroyo, wait for a Gunnar Helm, wait for a Mason Taylor, wait for a Maliki Maraveo, but don't pay up for Harold Fannin Jr. Anything else on Dynasty tight ends, or you just want to close it out?
Is Tyler Warren a unicorn at tight end?
He's not a unicorn.
I don't think he is.
No, I think he is a very fun offensive weapon that they can use all over the field. He might be a unicorn because he can do wildcat snaps, but other than that.
Sure. but he is not Taysom Hill 2.0. Stop saying he's Taysom Hill 2.0, everybody. All right, this is not the type of Taysom Hill 2.0 player.
Oh man, I wish he was.
He is a better version of Pat Freiermuth at the NFL level, and he is the growth of what we thought Freiermuth was going to be as a freshman and sophomore at Penn State before the injuries set in and zapped his explosiveness.
Yes, completely agree. He's also no, he's the same size.
No, he should be about the same size. Yeah.
I was gonna say I thought he was bigger, but
Penn State has some big they have some big tight ends that take on linebackers and just do what they can. So.
But this does it for another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. If you've made it this long, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, go check out some of the other rankings. Evan, it's been a pleasure, buddy.
Pleasure, Mike.
Love you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG podcast. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to check out written content, head over to lastwordonsports.com.
Don't let the Goblins get you.